Now we're on Daf Daled Amud Beis, Kamash Malon v'Yotzach Chinam. And the Torah went out of its way to say v'Yotzach Chinam, referring to an islandess, that even though an islandess does not have Simoni Naras, nevertheless you could sell her as an Oma. The Gemara now has a kasha on Marbar of Ashi, Diomar Lav Kavachomer, who the fact that islandess is Yotza Bibagus, we could derive from a Kalvachomer, and we don't have to derive from a pasuk, because, as we said before, Bagrus is mafkia, the rishus of the Avla Gamre, is based on this kasha. Do we reject Abaye, that the pasuk is coming to teach me that islandess is Yotzeis bebagrus, ha'amrina and milsa the yasel kavachomer tarchachasel lakra, so that even if you could derive bagrus and the yitzia of an islandess mi amus bebagrusa from a Kalvachomer, nevertheless the Torah will write out that which is derived or can be derived from a Kalvachomer. So Moritz says, Hani Mili, when do we apply the principle of Torah V'Kosvel Akra? That's Heicha Delekal Shnuye. If you have no other answer, and that's your fallback position out of desperation, if we have another good answer to explain why the Torah wanted to write something out explicitly, is Mishaninon. We'll give that teretz, and we'll only fall back on Torah V'Kosvel Akra in a situation where you don't have an answer. Are you telling me that we derive Kidushin Kesef from V'Yotzach Chinam and Kesef Desanya? We have it from a different pasuk. And this was my question that I asked yesterday. So you see the word kicha with regard to marriage is ein kicha ela kesef. How do I know that the word kicha means through kesef? Kenu omen asati kesef asoda kach bimeni. Avram Avinu purchased the soda from Ephron Achiti with kesef, and the Torah used the word kach. So we have a gzeira shav of kicha, and that's going to teach me Kidushin Kesef. Furthermore, the Gemara says, "V'alo dinu." You know what? You could derive Kidushin Kesef from a Kal V'chomer. Uma omer v'yasheina niknes bebia, niknes bekesef. Zusha niknes bebia inu din shetikone bekesef. Omer v'ya is not a Kinyan Ishus per se, it's a Kinyan Mama. And you're konen omer v'ya through Kesef, in which the father gives Kesef to the Adon. The Adon gives Kesef to the father, but she's not niknes bebia, even though there is something called Yud, which Mirz Hashem will talk about. But nevertheless, Kesef is operative. Now, in the case of an Isha Miskadeshes, she has a Kinyan Isur, which is called Bia. So how much more so should Kinyan Kesef work? And the Gemara offers a pirch on that Kalvachomer, Yevama Tochia. She niknes bebia, v'ena niknes bekesef. So you see that you could have a Kinyan of Bia, but not a Kinyan of Kesef. Yevama is a precedent. And therefore, in the case of Ishus, even though you can have a Kidushin Bia, because the Torah says Ubala, but nevertheless you cannot derive Kesef. Because you can have a Kidushin Bia and a Kinyan Bia without having a Kinyan Kesef, like we have in the precedent of Yevama. Gemara says, Mal Yevama Shekain Ein Niknes B'Shtar, Tomar Ba She Niknes B'Shtar. Don't bring a raya from Yevama. Yevama doesn't have any Kinyan whatsoever except for Bia. And for example, Shtar is not Kona B'Yevama. And therefore, we could say that for the very same reason that Shtar is not Kona B'Yevama, Kesef is not Kona B'Yevama. But an Isha, for Ishus whose niknes B'Shtar, we should say that Kesef is also a method of Kinyan and derive it in Kalvachomer from Omer V'riya. Therefore, the Brisa concludes, Talmud Lomar ki yikach ish Isha, to teach me that he could be Makadish her B'Kesef. Frek the Gemara v'lhal lomali kroha asyula. We already had a Kalvachomer, and although we raised the pirch on the Kalvachomer, we rejected the pirch on the Kalvachomer, and therefore we could derive that a woman is niknes B'Kesef from a Kalvachomer, because the pirch on the Kalvachomer from Yevama was completely rejected, because Yevama doesn't have a Kinyan other than Bia. She doesn't have a Kinyan B'Shtar. Omarav Ashi Mishum Dikala Meima Mikara Dina Pircha. Your entire Kal Vachomer is based on a fundamental error. You want to derive Kidushay Kesef from Omavriya. Mechko Maisala Mi Omavriya, Mala Omavriya Sheken Yotze Bekesef, Tomar Bezusheni Yotze Bekesef. A woman who's an Omavriya has the ability to be Podes Atzma Bekesef. Let's say, for example, an Omavriya is meant to work for a designated 6-year period of time, and 3 years go down, and she wants to be Podes Atzmo and save herself the extra 3 years of Amuz, so she can be Poda herself with Kesef. And that's why Kesef is considered Chashuv Liknosa. But in the case of Ishus, she needs a get. There's no such thing as pidyon kesef for her to get out of her state of Ishus. So she's not like an Amma who's Yotza b'kesef. She's Eina Yotza b'kesef, and therefore we can no longer derive from Amma that even an Isha is niknes b'kesef. Talmud Lomer, therefore I need ki yikach Isha. So this is the Shita of Rav Ashi, that mi ikra dedina pircha. There's no fair analogy between creating Ishus and Amos. So that even if Amos is created with Kesef, it doesn't mean that Ishus could be created with Kesef. Because in the case of Amos, she's Yotza b'Kesef. Whereas in the case of Ishus, she's only Yotza b'Get, but not b'Kesef. Now, we need 2 psukim, apparently, for Isha Miskadeshes b'Kesef. Why? And the Gemara says, we need number 1, the pasuk Yotzach Chidem and Kasef. Number 2, Ki Yikach Isha, with the Gzeir Shav of Kicha. Te'i Kasef Rachmana, if the Torah only would have said Ki Yikach, and we would derive the Gzeir Shava that just like the Avram Avinu purchased the Sada with Kesef, so to Yikim Kaddish and Isha with Kesef, Hava Mina Kidushin Diyav Leibal, Didahavi. Okay, Kidushin is a valid, Kesef is a valid method of Kidushin, but in the case of a Nara, the Kesef should be her own. She's Nara is like a Gedola, and she's marrying herself off. She deserves the Kesef. It's Kasef Achmar V'Yotzach Chinam to teach me that the Kesef goes to the father. I would say that an Isha can give Kesef to an Ish in order to be for him to be Makadish her. Now, this sounds very contemporary, right? Why does he give the Kesef to her? Let her give the Kesef to him, and she'll be Kona him. And have a Kedusha be a valid Kedusha. Because Rachmana Ki Yikach. That's why I need the Torah to say Ki Yikach in the active masculine. Below Ki Tikach. And not that she, in the feminine, takes him as her husband. The Mishnah says, Ubala, Malamich and Niknes Bebia. Fact the Gemara Dinu. Why do I need a pasuk Ubala? I can derive from Kavachom Mayiv, Hamashay Niknes Bekesef. Is Niknes Bebia. Zusha Niknes Bekesef, Ain't a Dinsha Niknes Bebia. In the case of an Ishus, you could be Kona with Kesef. In the case of Yavama, you cannot be Kona with Kesef. And if Bia works by Yavama, then how much more so it should work by Isha? So where it says Hamivriya, Tochiach have a pircha that Kavachomer. Shay Niknes Bekesef, he ain't a Niknes Bebia. Very interesting that the Gemara thinks they have a pircha here from Hamivriya, because Hamivriya is a Kinyan Kesef. Yeah, that's because Hamivriya is a Kinyan Mama. So certainly Bia would not be a Kinyan. You're talking about a Yavama with Zika. You're talking about an Isha's Ish, to be Mekadosh and Isha. I mean, that's Bia. That's a Kinyan Isa. So Gemara therefore slugs it up. We have no proof from Amavriya because Amavriya is Niknes Bekesef because that's the nature of the Kinyan. It's a Kinyan Mama. and she's not niknes bebia, because there's no kinyan Isa, it's only kinyan mama. But in the case of whether it's Kidushin Kesef or Yevama, there we're talking about a kinyan Ishus. And therefore, we have a valid Kal V'chomer. If Yevama, which you cannot achieve a kinyan Yevama in Zika through Kesef, but yet Bia operates, how much more so in a regular Ishus, where Kesef is operative, how much more so Bia should be a valid method of Kidushin. Hamilomu Bala. What does that mean, Tamilomu Bala? We just finished saying that you could derive it from a Kal V'chomer from Yevama. Lomo Likra Ha'asile. We derive it from Kal V'chomer from Yevama. And that pircha that we raised, we rejected that pircha. Omrav Ashi Mishum Dika L'Meimah Meikra D'Dina pircha. Meicha Kamaisla Yevama Mal Yevama Shkein Skukov Amedes Tomar Bezu Shein Skukov Amedes. In the case of Yevama, she already has issues. She's not allowed to marry anyone else. And according to one day, if she does, the child is a mamzer. So she has an ishus through Zika. And therefore, to take her from Zika to a full-fledged ishus, all you need is Bia. But in the case of a Pnuya, and you want to marry a Pnuya, how do you know that when you go from 0 to 100, Bia would be enough to effectuate a kinyan? And for that, I need the word Ubala to teach me that Isha Niknes Bia. Again, you can't derive from Yevama, because Yevama is already Skukov Omedes.